Test, 1, 2, 3, test. Test, 1, 2, 3, test. Okay, let's see here. Hello everybody. We will get started here in just a moment. We have about 2 minutes to go. Happy, what is today? Today is this is Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Is that right? Yes, it is. Woohoo. It has been a hectic day for me. Hope everyone is doing well. We're going to have some cool fun tonight. Let's see here. Get this other window up. There we go. Okay. Cool beans. Now I have my window up so I can make sure my shots are framed properly with the video cameras. Excuse me. So, what this series is all about. Hi, Mark. Good evening. What this series is all about is about different ways to do. A general term is fabric painting or embellishing, but it's all about how to use different art mediums to create your own fabric, so to speak. So a wide range of topics I'll be covering in this series. Everything from fabric inks and markers to textile paint, acrylic paint, and also something called Inktense pencils, which I'm going to show you a little bit of that tonight. But I'm going to go over some supplies and fabric markers. If you're just getting started with this, or you're nervous about trying it, fabric markers are the best and easiest way to get into it. Simply because you don't have to worry about mixing anything and all that fun stuff. Let's see here. Let me adjust this one camera. Okay. Everyone, I have been busy. Hi, Tricia. I have been busy today. I got up at 3:30 this morning and started cutting more fabric, and then I took a midday nap, or tried to, and then I've been up cutting fabric, and when I get done with this episode, I'm going to go cut more fabric yet. I've got everything from Michigan ready to go. I leave in the morning, and then right now I'm working on all the stuff for my Florida event. A week from tomorrow it begins. So, woohoo! We're going to get started. I might change the title to this just a little bit, probably won't, but this is all about fabric painting is what I'm calling it. But in this, we will cover everything from how to use a light box to trace designs onto fabric, to paint the fabric after the design is transferred, how to use jelly mats to do relief printing, and that's a lot of fun. Oh, wonderful, Tricia. Awesome. Yeah, it's a lot of, those are so much fun. Oh my gosh. And let's see. So, and there's really a lot of cool techniques, and I'm going to try to focus on one thing at a time because I can easily get sidetracked with this. But I'm going to show you some of the end results and explain. I'm only going to cover mainly fabric markers tonight and some ink and beginning of what the difference between fabric markers on fabric and what the Inktense pencils will do. Okay? So without further ado, we're going to get started. Okay. Let me move my camera. Select a different camera. There we go. Move that keyboard. So, there we go. So, what I've got right here in this basket, let me just wide open that shot. Oop, wrong way. And come back a little bit. There we go. Maybe a little more. Yeah, that's as far as it'll go. But these were metal tins, and I took them out and put them in a wicker basket so they were easy access. So I have three different, these are textile markers. They have paint in them for textiles. So this first grouping, these are made by Dime, and it says Dime Fiber Markers, permanent fabric marker. With all of these markers, once you apply the color and you get it to where you want it, you set it with heat, and that makes it permanent. After that, it can be laundered. Usually want to let them set for 24 to 72 hours before you would try to launder anything. So that's really cool. So there it is. There's Dime fabric markers. There's one product. This one, this group, I got these off of, most quilt shops can get these if they don't have them in stock. I think there is 20 of these in a set, and they're about 20 bucks. This is Arteza, okay? And it says right on it, permanent fabric marker. These I bought off of Amazon, and it was a set of, I think 24 or 30. I think it was 30 markers in this set, and it was around $25, I think. And they're really good too. The Dime markers have one tip on them. It's not fine, it's more blunt. There we go. There, I don't want to mark myself. I'll be using these here in a minute. And notice there's no, it just has a single tip on each pin, which is okay. The Arteza have two, there's a tip on each end. This is a very blunt tip. Let's see here. Let me get this. There we go. That has a very blunt tip to it on that end. And then the other end is more of a fine tip. So there you go. You can see the two sizes of those. I like where you have the opportunity to have two different size tips depending whether you're doing detail work or trying to fill in a large area. It's a good thing. So there's Dime and Arteza. I like them both. With Arteza, there's just a bigger selection of colors that you can get. So that's always a plus. And then I've had these for quite some time. I don't have a whole lot of color range in them, but these are Edding, Edding. And these are actually made in Germany. They're rather expensive. However, I actually bought like 50 of these on eBay, on an eBay auction, and got them really cheap. It's just the way that it actually turned out. But these are actually made to fit into the drawing attachment for one of the high-end Bernina embroidery machines. So on those machines, there's an attachment you put where the embroidery foot goes. The marker will hold it in place, and it will draw on fabric in the hoop, whatever you program it to do. So that's where these come from. They're have a lot of color in them, so they're a good one. And then, believe it or not, another good option are these. These are Sharpie fine point permanent markers, and you can get them in about 60 different colors. I think I got like a 30 pack or something like that. And these work on fabric as well, just one size tip, but they work. Just something to have in your repertoire. If you're going to get into it, honestly, if you don't own any of them yet, I highly recommend, I think a good starter set would be these Artezas to get your feet wet, because you'll just get a wider variety of color hues. When you apply these, and as long as the pigments are still wet, you can add more different colors to it to blend, or just use the color that's on the tab. Then I just got these in. These, if you're a quilter, you might recognize these are Pigma Microns. I got them in black. This is what I use to trace on a light box with. Or if after something is painted, you can just use these to put a little bit of detail into something that you painted. And you'll see what I mean by that through this series. Okay. There is that. The other product I'm going to be talking about tonight is this right here. This is the smallest set. These are Derwent Inktense ink pencils. So these are pencils are inside of this, and it looks like a colored lead pencil that you may have used before in the past, but that's not what they are. These are actually, there's no lead in them. There's actually ink. Ink is in the crayon part of these. And what's really cool about these, when you draw on fabric, or you can use these for paper also, but when you draw on fabric or paper, it looks like a crayon. You don't color it in solid, but you can apply water or a textile medium to it, and that's what activates the ink that's in these pencils. It's rather astounding. I'm just experimenting with these. This is the smallest set you can get. There's 12 in a box, and I got these on Amazon for $22. If you're familiar with art supplies, they also make these where they look like a Conti stick or a charcoal stick, but it's still the same product inside of those. You can apply these directly to the fabric or paper, or you can use a textile medium and mix it like you would an acrylic or an oil paint. And that's what I use this for. This is just something I got at the grocery store. I cleaned it after I got the product out of it. Then I just use it to use my textile medium on. It's handy. It's very disposable. It didn't cost me anything, so I like repurposing things whenever possible. Using the Inktense. Okay. These two brushes I have here, these are hair brushes, and these are more for an acrylic paint than they are what I'm using them for here. I have new ones ordered. You want a stiff art brush that's a nylon. It needs to be real stiff. You can see how soft that is. It bends real easy. You want them super stiff when you're using them with the Inktense, and you'll see what I mean by that here in just a moment. Textile medium. There's actually artist textile medium that you can use, and you could actually use acrylic paint, mix it with textile medium, and it will actually cause it to be permanent when applied to fabric, and then it's heat set. Or aloe vera 100% gel with no color in it, no scents. I'm going to be using this tonight, and you'll see what I mean by that. I'll use a couple of different methods. So, all of that being said, and yes, you do have to sharpen these. You do not want to use an electric pencil sharpener. You'll waste your pigment colors. They come already sharpened, but I purchased this. It's made by the same company. This is just a manual pencil sharpener. That's a big art eraser there on the end of it. So I thought that would be handy to have. Okay. So here's something I personally like to do is I have embroidery machines, of course, and this is a built-in embroidery pattern in one of my machines, and it's a pumpkin, and I stitched it out, and then I took the fabric markers and I colored it in. Pretty cool, right? This is how fun this, if you remotely like to color or do adult coloring, that's basically what this is. And this was nothing but fabric markers. I didn't put any medium on it or anything like that. And the cool thing about this one is, though, once I started coloring in, I realized if you turn it on its side, it actually turns from a pumpkin into a face. Isn't that wild? I think this is built in, design is built into the Baby Lock Altair or the Meridian. It's in both of those machines. It's an exclusive design for those. But as you can see there, this is all red stitching. Normally, I like to use black embroidery thread, which you'll see in just a moment, and then just use those as your outline to color. You don't have to have an embroidery machine to do that, though, because the next episode I'll have my light box hooked up, and I'm going to show you how to trace any design from a coloring book or even a photograph to trace outlines on your fabric with. It sounds complicated. Truly, it isn't. It just takes a little time, that's all. But this is something I find that is very relaxing to do. And if you get stressed out, pull out one of these things and just start coloring on fabric. You can always use the fabric itself into garments or home decor or a quilt or whatever you want to. So more of my embroidery design outlines. These are all built into some of my embroidery machines. Here is a really cool Zen heart. This is all marker work here. That's what I've done with that one. You can see that. A lot of fun. It just stitched out and then you have something to color on. Oh, wonderful, Tricia. I have the Daylight Wafer 2 light box is what I have. Looking back, I wish I'd gotten the larger one, but hey, it does what I need it to do for right now anyway. So there's that one. Here's one. This is also a built-in embroidery design. There's a lot of dent stitching in it, so I'm not going to color the whole thing in. But you don't have to color the whole thing in. I see how the black thread really makes them pop. So, and I think this was on the Solaris, I think. All of the Baby Lock embroidery machines has, some people used to call this red work or black work because of the color of the thread you stitch it out in. Totally cool to do that with any of the designs. It just stitches out the outline. Okay. And the one I'm working on right now that I'm experimenting with is this one right here. So I have some that is nothing but markers, like this. These are all the Inktense pencils. And where I've shaded this in, that is the Inktense. And I'm going to get that a little bit closer. You'll see the difference. The fabric markers are much, for lack of a better word, more neon looking, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Whereas with those pencils, you get all this subtle shading. Once your fabric has been dampened with either water or aloe vera or textile medium, you can then take your pencil while this is wet and add more color to it for highlights and stuff. But yeah, I'm really digging the Inktense pencils. It's pretty cool. So, what I have in this little cup, I went and got one out of the kitchen. This is aloe vera gel, okay? And you can also use this on the fabric markers, is what I'm going to experiment with first tonight. I'm going to do one of these, but I'm going to get a marker. I'm going to get some green. I'm going to do a leaf. Let me zoom in a little closer so you can see that better. There we go. Okay. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to color in a leaf with a lighter green. Let's see, these are dimes. Here is Arteza. Let's get one of that German ones out. And it's a Sharpie there. We're going to play with these three different types of markers on this. The Sharpie, yes. The Edding, we'll do the Edding first. And with markers, you can actually use them like, pretend that this is a coloring book, and just totally brush in the color and completely fill in the space. Okay, there's that one. This is a dime green. I'll put that on the next one. Ooh, and it is almost, it's not got much, any color coming out on it. Let me try that, see if I can reactivate it. I used this one a lot when I first got it. I got some color out of it. But you see, notice what I did. I dipped that in the aloe vera gel and it kind of reactivated it. So I've discovered this stuff is like magic and it's inexpensive. You can get, I got it at Walmart. It's a 12-ounce bottle and it was a little bit under $5. An 8-ounce bottle of actual Textile artist medium can range anywhere from $10 to $15 to $20 a bottle. So totally doable. And the great thing about the aloe vera, when it dries, your fabric is still nice and soft. So that was the dime. Let's lay that one down. This is also a dime one. Let's put it right over here. It's got plenty of color in it. So you can see those three different colors there side by side. I'll pull it closer to the camera when we get our little tests done here. Here is an Arteza. That's the fine point tip. Right there. And here's a Sharpie. I just want you to see them side by side, what they look like. The Sharpie definitely has more of an odor to it, but we'll check it out. I'm going to pull this up closer. There we go. So Sharpie, Arteza, dime, and that was the Edding, that light green right here. So let me do this another way. Let me get a point, something to point with. There we go. So that was the German Edding pencil. Dime, Arteza, and Sharpie. They all lay down great color. Look how beautiful the color is on that. The only thing I have on the back of this is stabilizer. This is like a no-show mesh stabilizer from the embroidery hoop. And if I was putting this on a light box, so you wouldn't have to worry about having stabilizer on the back, you could also use a paper tearaway if you wanted to. It's all good. I love the coloration of this one here. This was the Inktense. But there we go. I'm just going to finish coloring in this little flower here. But before I go any further, I'm going to take some, I'll bring it back up close. I'm going to apply aloe vera to the top of these before they completely dry. And what will happen, it'll actually kind of make them blend a little bit better. So you don't see the actual strokes of that pen or the nib on that marker as well. It'll just help kind of blend it all together. in the area that I'm applying it to. I like having aloe vera gel around. It's a great moisturizer for your skin. But there it is. I just applied just a little bit to it. Now check that out. Let's see how it kind of even made that look a little more vibrant. It's really going to blow your mind. I'm going to use the Inktense pencil. I'll pull out a couple of the greens on that, and then you'll see what the Inktense side by side with this actually looks like. Yes, Tricia, this is actually quilting cotton. And what I'm going to pick up a couple of bolts of when I go through Tennessee on my trip to Florida, I'm going to stop at a fabric company down there and get a super high quality, high thread count muslin. In England and in Australia and New Zealand, they call it calico. But here in the States, we call it muslin, is what we call it. But there's very, very many different qualities of muslin fabrics. And this, I think, is what's going to really work well, because I also like to do fabric dyeing and stuff like that, which we're going to do in this series. So, I have 3 greens that came in this 12 pencil set. They also have a 72 color set, as far as that goes. So this one says leaf green on it. I like the feel of these too. This one is apple green. Okay, leaf green, apple green, and this is a teal green. So we're going to, with these, I'm not going to fill in like a coloring book. I'm just going to add pigment and then apply the gel to it to make it fill into the area. So with these, since this is actually a pigment in the pencils, once it gets wet, it activates it. And before I apply any medium to it, I'm going to bring it up to the camera so you can see it. I'm just going to put some strokes right in the middle of a petal. I'm not putting a lot. These pencils will last a long time. There we go. Let me set those to the side. Now let's see what I did here. Those are the 3 colors I just put on. See how I just drew a line down the center of each one? Whereas over here with the markers, I completely filled it in. Now watch what happens when I apply the medium, which in my case tonight is aloe vera gel. I'm out of actual textile medium. I will get some of that in a future episode. We'll see the difference, what that does as well. So I'm just got the gel on my paintbrush, and now I'm just going to go right over where I've applied that pencil mark. I'm just going to brush it, and what will happen when that fabric gets damp, the color will bleed out and fill in the area. So I get it applied to all 3. I'll pull it back up to the camera. This gives it a totally different look. And what's great about it, once it's damp with this gel, or if you had medium, you could use water too, but water, I have discovered, tends to run a little bit. Okay. So I want you to see this before we do anything else. You saw what I did there. There are those. Now I'm going to take the pencil and I'm going to add more color to it now that it's wet. So there's what that looks like right now. And then I'm going to add some yellow to it. Yellow pencil. This is called Sun Yellow. and it's wet, so as I add this to it this time, let's get this on camera here. See if I can get any closer. Oh yeah. There we go. Just have to get it positioned here. There we go. I'll leave it alone so that it can autofocus. We're almost there. Just a minute. There we go. It doesn't like being zoomed in close, does it? Come out just a hair. That'll help it. There we go. Okay. So there's my 3. Now I'm going to add the sun yellow because it's still wet. And as I add it, it will just fill in. I'm going down each side of those stripes, the original pencil marks. And it will help to blend it in and create highlights and shadow. So, there we go. Back that out a little more. There we go. Now you can see those right there. There's the color I added to it. Pretty cool. Lots to play with. You could still add more color to it. Now, one thing, if you're laying a lot of color side by side next to stuff, to prevent bleeding, all you have to do, right now, I could take a hot iron and press it for like 20 seconds and it would heat set everything and finish the drying process. And then you can still add more color on top of colors you've already added with these pencils right here. So this stuff, the more I use it, the more I like it. It's really cool. And let's see what else we can do with it here. So what I was doing here, I was just filling in the background area of it. And how I did that, I got what is called, is it this one, I think? Yes. This one is called Baked Earth. Okay, Baked Earth. That's what this right here is. And all I did, so this is dry right now. I have not heat set anything yet. So all I'm going to do first, I'm going to lightly add some pigment right here. So there's nothing here. I'm just going to add a little bit of pigment. I have it just very lightly adding some color to it. Notice I hardly used any. I'm going to take my wider tipped chisel brush. I'm going to get some aloe vera on it. And then I'm just going to apply it to where I just added that color. Now look at that changing already. See how that color intensified? And I'm just going to blend it out. As we go here. And like I said, a stiffer brush instead of these hair brushes I have will make this process, you'll see next on our next episode of it. But notice how I'm kind of making that disappear. Doesn't that look cool? I'm just going to add more gel right on top of those harder lines I made. And once it's damp, then I can add more pigment right to that. It's damp right there now. So check this out. I'm going to use a very light touch. I'm going to apply some more aloe to it. I can see that color moving around now. Pretty cool. And that's how easy it is to apply. Check it out. Isn't that cool? Now this fabric has a very like a frosted paisley design to it. So it's adding some texture to the paint that wouldn't normally be there. For instance, if I move to this is a scrap that I play with. Okay. So this is from my long arm. This is just some stitching. So if I add color, hold on there, let me get the fuchsia color. There we go. Okay. Set that to the side. Let's say I'm going to add some color, and I don't want it to. This has got batting in it also, so I'm just going to lay in some pigment close to this line. Not coloring it all in, I'm just adding some lines, kind of following the contour of these curves. And if you can see that there. Now we're going to add some gel to it. Over here I used water, and see what I mean by bleeding? Yeah, it bled completely outside of the line that I was intending. So we're going to use the gel. And the gel actually gives you better control over bleeding. So you're just going to actually apply that on top of that pigment. Now in my little cup where I have all this gel, I could add pigment to this cup and actually like create a unique blend of, for lack of a better word, paint, basically. Here we go. I'm going to get this smaller brush and work some of that in. Kind of let it set there for a moment. As you can see, after you add your medium to it, the colors, they really intensify, which hence I think is why that company calls it Inktense. You can see that. Now that it's wet, I could add more of this color to it, so check it out. Try to keep it so my hand's not in the way. There we go. But with it wet, boy howdy, it just soaks that pigment right up out of that pencil. You could totally make it as dark as you wanted to. Just going to put it right up next to that line. And as it dries, it will still intensify and spread out that pigment color throughout the area, wherever it's wet at. It'll follow the moisture basically, but check that out, isn't that cool? So that's the difference basically between markers and that. If I was going to use a marker here, let's grab a marker. Try to get one as close to that color hue as I can. So there's one. There's one. We'll try a couple of different brands of these. There's one, and I do not have a Sharpie in that color range. So, if I come on now, this is the German Edding marker pencil. And maybe I'm going to just pull this color this way. Okay. And I'm not pressing down super hard, just like a very light stroke. And as an experiment, once I get this color in here, we're going to add some gel to it and just see what happens. It's always fun to do that. Just kind of hitting that wet area right there in between these two areas. I'm actually applying it to the wet area now. And what it does, it will soften the marker, fabric marker that you put down there. So let's take that and take our little brush. Just going to apply some of this to it. So it doesn't blend as well as the Inktense, but it still looks pretty cool. Just depends what effect you're actually after. Now, if I was going to add color to a large piece of fabric, I would probably use the water method. Well, I would use the water method. And there's a lot of other textile mediums and paints and inks out there that are really great for that. Okay. Let's use a different one here. Let's try this one. I'm going to add some color right in here because this is real. I mean, look on camera, it really looks neon, and it is pretty bright. Oh, thank you, Mark. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to add some, this is darker for sure. This is closer to this color of Inktense, but now it's almost getting, it's really starting up here. It actually looks like it's watercolor, where it's the kind of coloring effect you get on a batik, for lack of a better word or example to use. Then we could take these, we could outline, basically. The cool thing about the fabric markers, you don't have to wet your fabric at all to use them. Okay. Go. And it feels totally different, I will tell you, applying this onto something that has already been quilted. Now if I follow this on out to this area right in here, that way, this is completely dry fabric, so check it out, just so you know. We'll see what the difference between the two look. Notice the color is not as bright or as dark as it is here because I applied the marker to wet. This is dry on dry here. Quilting on this is just something I free motion. So yes, if you get this bug to do fabric painting, and I encourage you to do it because it really does have a meditative effect as you're doing it, which tells me it has to be good for you. It has to lower, I'm sure it lowers blood pressure and stuff, because there's case studies where when you access the part of your brain that enables you to do this, it has wonderful health benefits and so forth and so on. Okay. You can see what I'm doing there. A lot of fun. So what you could do, you could take something like this and outline it, like I'm doing here, and then apply a medium in between it, maybe an Inktense or one of the acrylic paints I'll be showing you. On that topic, there is something else I want to share with you tonight. When you're just getting started in this is the most economical way to get a selection. This is all textile paint here from Jacquard. I like that brand a lot. I've used it. I use Jacquard products to also buy the dyes for my sheep wool and that kind of stuff. But this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bottles in it, including white, yellow, true red, violet, sky blue, turquoise, apple green, brown, black, and white. But this is how you get started in it, by buying a sample pack like this and playing with it. These are not that expensive. I think I paid around $15 for this, but you get 9 bottles, and this stuff goes a long way. You can use it full strength out of the bottle, or you can actually thin it down with a textile medium, aloe vera gel, or even just plain water, and apply it. Once this dries, then you heat set it and it's permanent. For instance, let me see here. I was doing some printing on a jelly plate, and this is a totally different type of dye I'm going to show you here, but check this out. There's one of my prints on fabric that I've created. It's a special type of dye that I used for this, and it is called Dynaflow by Jacquard. Okay? It's like liquid ink. You put a few drops on here and it just wicks out into your fabric. So that's a really cool one to play with as well. Same way you can get it in those little bubble packs like that other one I showed you, and just get a variety of colors. This is actually one of my brayers for where I do the actual printing with stencils. Here's one of my little prints I made. And there's also a Jacquard textile paint called Luminaire. And what it does, it's a metallic, and it puts a little bit of a metallic sheen to it. And you can kind of see that glimmer right in here when I rotate that. That's that metallic paint, and it is really cool looking. The stencil, I actually cut those on my rubber scanning cut to use in textile painting. Here's some other little prints I was playing with. And I'm going to show you how to do all of this stuff. This is upcoming videos, different colors there. I have a lot of fabric cut that I haven't even painted or printed yet. Very heavy on the metallic paint on this one. Check that out. Way cool. Just showing you some of my samples. I like to play with different designs. And just be creative. And when I make these stencils for printing, because this is actually called a print, I didn't brush this paint on with a paintbrush or anything. So what it is, I use heavy cardstock, and then my design I put into the Brother Scan and Cut, and it cuts out that stencil that I can reuse a bunch of times. So Tricia, this is a white. This is actually not muslin here. No, this is white. This is bleached muslin right here. Yes. Check this one out. This is kind of cool. Then here's some that I haven't printed. I just cut a bunch. Okay, I got a bunch of squares I haven't done anything with yet. I also cut something else. This is a heavy linen. This is actually garment fabric, linen garment fabric, a heavyweight one that I cut up to play with. Has a lot of texture in the fabric itself. Then this, when I talk about jelly plate, if you've never heard of these, you can buy them or you can make them yourself. But what you do, like these prints I was just showing you, this plate is made out of gelatin, okay? You apply your paint or ink to this, put your stencil down to add texture, whatever, and then you apply your fabric to it, and when you peel it off, you get an effect like this right here. This was a stencil I had put down over the plate, applied ink to it, took the stencil off, then applied my fabric, and then it pulled up. So as you can see, that is the exact same size as my print. You can get these jelly plates in a variety of sizes. Makes it easy to do. And to store them, they come in this little plastic bubble. You just want to store them flat and make sure they're back in the plastic so they don't dry out. Super easy. Here's a bigger bottle of the Dynaflow, and here you can see, look at this. I mean, it is like water is how thin it is. I'm not going to open that cap because I don't want to get it on me. Not tonight, anyway. Another thing I keep on hand for stuff like this, these are just little wooden sticks I've gotten at like the Dollar Tree or the dollar store. In the craft department, they're great to stir with, to add texture with, all kinds of stuff. And then you can look around your house and find all kinds. Once you start looking for stuff, you'll be surprised at what you can find to add texture for a plate like this. Think of like the mesh bags that onions and fresh veggies come in. You can actually place that down on fabric, put paint over the top of it, and get a really cool effect. Okay. But yeah, I just touched that right there and it's still really super wet. So let's add just a little bit more color to this and we'll move on to something else. Just going to add some fine lines to it to create movement. I'm not trying to color it fully in or anything like that. I did get that pretty wet when I applied the gel for the Inktense, but there's that. Okay, let's move these out of our way. Then let's go back to this. We're going to finish coloring this in. I'm going to use the markers on it. Oops. Here we go. I'm going to finish this one up with the green markers. That one's almost shot already for some reason. That was a dyeing marker. Yeah, that one's got color in it. But it's all being said and done, it's equally as fun just to color, to paint with these markers, because you can get these markers not only in this style, you can get it so that acrylic paint comes out of them. I mean, there's such a wide variety of choices when it comes to this. And ultimately, how everything looks is a matter of what looks good to you. And just getting started, don't be afraid to experiment, because it's all good. Now, I will tell you, see me putting the cap right back on them once I finish. You want to do that. You don't want to leave a bunch laying around without the caps on the end of them, because they will tend to dry out. I think that's what happened to this one. I think it's this one. It's not very happy. Nope, it's not that one. Okay. It's this one here. Yes. There was just not much ink left in that little puppy. I'm going to dip it in that gel. See if I can activate it. Because now color is coming out of it that I dipped it in the aloe vera gel. Check it out. So it's all good. That seemed to help it for some reason. I'm going to dip it again in there. I'm going to put the cap on it and let it set and see if that helps add moisture to the tip of that pen. Here's another lighter green. Let's get out the blunt end. This one. Well, you'd think that'd be lighter, but it came out pretty dark. The cap did. Let's try one over here. There we go. Just pulling out different greens to try them. See what they come up with. You don't have to have a solid color fabric. Oh, there's a nice bright green Sharpie. Let's try this one here. It was much darker than the cap was on it, because it was this one right here is what that was. Right there. And let's try this one here. It's a very dark green. I mean, it is so dark, it is almost black. It's definitely like a very dark green. You can see the green tint to it. What really sticks out, that one little dude right there does. I'm going to get a nice bright red, put in the very center of it, just because I can. See what that looks like. But I must admit, I do like how the black, because all the black is black thread, embroidery thread. I do like how that looks once it's colored in. With the black thread, it kind of frames everything. A lot of fun. Then I was showing you these. So these were originally marketed. Let me back this camera out some. There we go. These are the Pigma microns, and these were actually used to sign, for instance, to sign a quilt label with, for instance. So for instance, I'm going to sign my name. You have to go over it a couple of times. And these are permanent. As you can see there, I just signed it. Now, if it wasn't this fabric with the frosted paisley printed on it, it would show up much better. But once again, once you apply heat to it, it makes it permanent and it sets it. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go over here. Let's do this one. We're going to use the Inktense on that. At this point, we're just applying. You can see where I added this with water. It actually kind of bled out into the leaves. Now that it's dry, I can apply color on top of it. It'll be okay. For instance, you can see this color really bled right in here. So check it out. I'm going to add this to it. I'll lay in some green pigment. And I'm going to add some aloe to it. And once I get that ink activated, then I'll come back in with one of the other shades of green. Because what I've found is if you can have at least two colors in an object, like say this leaf, it really gives it a super duper cool effect. Once my new brushes come in, I'm actually going to experiment just using the water again. Because these hair brushes really soak up a water, so it oversaturated my fabric and caused the bleeding. Okay, so there's that. Now I'm going to add yellow. I like how yellow looked added to this. I'd already done a couple like that. But like here, the green and yellow, and the green and the yellow. I'm not going to color it in solid. I'm just going to take my pencil and follow some of the black lines on it. Let me get in a little bit closer if I can. There we go. Here we go. We're right here. So this is wet now. I'm just going to add some few lines into it. And where I add that yellow, it will start to merge a little bit with that green and make this really cool effect. I really do like how that looks. And that's all you got to do. You just have to be willing to experiment. Definitely don't apply this to something that you consider a treasure, just starting out especially, because once it's in there, it's not coming back out. I really like how that looks. Doesn't that look cool? Let's get that closer. I like how that one came out. The one thing I do like about the Inktense, the colors are very intense. Depending what color the pencil is you use, of course. There we go. I'm going to try to soften up the green in it a little bit by just adding some more pigment right on top of it, which will automatically create some shading. There we go. Right there. Oops, come on you. There we go. There we go. I totally dig that. I like it. Notice, you can see the pink right in here. That's what it had done here. See how it covered it up? So wonderful, you don't have to, yeah. The more I use the Inktense pencils, the more I just completely dig that. Now, if you're traveling, say on a plane or a train or whatever, I don't know how well you could do this in a car. This would be a travel thing to do, the markers especially, because you don't want to have brushes if you're in public transportation on an airline or on a train. I love to go by train. You don't want to have to take a bunch of stuff that's going to make a mess that you're going to mix. These markers are not messy. So, yoo-hoo, woohoo. It's a good thing. Now then. Let's see here. I'm going to do another leaf, but this time I'm going, this leaf here, notice how dark it is. I put like 4 different shades of green into it, and then it got really wet and it all blended together. So that's what happens when you get too much pigment, and that was with water. That was not with aloe. Okay, so I'm going to grab one of my other greens. I'll get the leaf green this time, and it's a little bit darker. I think it's this one. Nope, that's called bark. It's this one here, leaf green. I'm going to add the leaf green to one of these leaves. See, I'm just trying to keep it away from where I've already gotten. I don't want to go right next to this because the wet, if you have 2 areas that's wet and wet, there is a chance that it could bleed over into the next area. There we go. So I wouldn't do this. I would consider doing this one or this one though, or maybe this one right up here. Let's do this one right up here. That's fairly dry. I'm just going to lay in some color. I do like how the yellow works with the green. Let's see what the yellow does with this one. Okay, there's that. Then we're going to apply our gel to it. I think Mike is getting ready to go get us pizza for dinner. Okay, that's wetter now. Now we're going to take our yellow and do what we did on the previous one. Before I add the yellow, I want you to see what that looks like. It's this one right here. Okay. And that doesn't really look bad, but notice you can see the darker lines where I've added the gel. See how it's already kind of spreading out into the rest of the area. Now where the lighter parts are on this is where I'm going to apply the yellow to. Just kind of blends right in because it's wet and the pigment really grabs into it that way if you start it once it's wet. If you do any research, it's called wet on wet, basically. There we go. Here. And the more that sets, the more it's going to mingle and spread out until it's really, really nice. The one we just did, I mean, look how different that looks already. It's that one right there. And of course, the true test is not to get really close to it and look at it from a distance. It's really quite lovely. Pull it out some. Another use you can do with these, once you get your artwork done, you can cut it and frame it. Put it in a frame, hang it on a wall, stand it up on a desk. I do that all the time. Not only with embroidery, but with this type of stuff as well. Totally cool. And the reason you might think it's kind of bubbly is because parts of it has been wet and parts of it has not been wet. Once it's all had an equal application of wetness to it, it will actually lay nice and flat, in case you're wondering that. Okay. Let's see here. So what I just did right here, I tell you, I really like how the one I did just before, how that turned out. That's really nice. I'm going to add a little bit more color to this one. Let's see here. I am going to put just a hint of red into the very tips. Those little leaf points, just a hint. Just some little dabs here and there. Because I can. I think it might look kind of cool. And I'm getting carried away. I'm actually digging this. I like how this looks. Okay. Oh yeah. I like that much better now that I added a third color to it. Pretty cool. Yes, Tricia, it is the Inktense pencils, not the watercolor. These are actually made to be permanent on fabric as part of their marketing on it. Derwent makes a bunch of different types of pencils. What we want for fabric is the Inktense. Okay, that's the one you want. This is a metal tin. They also have a 72 pencil set that's in a wooden box, which would be kind of nice as well, but this is the one. It says ink pencils, crayon, and then it's in French. Crayon on, see, crayon encore. And there's some Spanish. It's in several languages. These are made in Great Britain. They're made in England. And they have been around since the 1800s. They've been in business a long time. Oh, you're welcome, Tricia. Lots of fun. And say, you just see how easy it is to do, right? Now, this one up here, it needs more color to it. So I'm going to, is that dry yet? It's fairly dry. I got to add more color to that because it's just kind of bland looking. It's just one color. I'm going to do that next. And I am going to add, let's see if this orange would do anything. Tangerine is what this is called, tangerine. So I want to lay in a little bit of this color on it. And you may not be able to see it because that fuchsia is fairly overpowering. I'm just going to try, I'm going to re-wet this one petal. See if that does anything. That does actually add some color to it, yes. Okay. It just needs something else going on there with that overall color. So I'm just going to add some pigment and then apply the gel to the entire thing. Now I will tell you that aloe vera gel from Walmart is like $4.78 for a 12-ounce bottle. You can buy that on Amazon. People are reselling it on Amazon for around $8 a bottle. So there you go. And it's the same brand that Walmart carries. Not a super big Walmart person, but yeah, that's a good deal on the aloe vera gel. I'm just going to re-wet it and let it reactivate that pigment I just put down. I'm liking it better already. I wasn't crazy about it before I added that little dab of orange to the fuchsia. But yeah, it made the world of difference. It added just enough subtle shading to it to make it really interesting. There we go. Okay. You can see that there now, right there. My bright studio lights really make some of this much more fluorescent looking than what it actually is. There we go. Pretty cool. Woohoo. And to clean these brushes up, regardless of which kind, you just run them under water. They just clean right up and let them dry. Super easy. And then I strongly recommend at the end of a session when you're done drawing, is to just keep these organized back in the original tin. That since they do have ink in them, I would say it would probably be a wise thing to, come here, there we go, to keep them in the tin when you're not using them. It'll just keep them protected from getting chipped or anything like that. Can't hurt. Put you over there, you there, you there. There we go. And it is in a nice little metal tin. It will just close. Pretty cool. Derwent Inktense. Totally recommend this. And on that same token, in that same timeline, honestly, the markers are equally as fun to use. It just depends what you're wanting to do. So if you use watercolor pencils, Tricia, what would happen is that's not permanent on fabric. A watercolor meat's not permanent. So I wouldn't if you're going to do it on fabric, I wouldn't use the watercolor pencils. If you're going to draw on paper, that's a different story. That's where I might use the watercolor pencils at. Okay. Any questions? Alrighty, everybody. That's all I have for tonight. I've given you a lot to think about. When I get back from my trips, we're going to do a whole lot more with this, because what I'm going to do on my next episode, I'm going to show you how to use a light box to trace designs onto the fabric or onto paper. If you use a photograph to trace, if you're going to trace off of one of your photographs, you're going to need a thin tracing paper. Even parchment paper would work. Good night, Mark and Tricia. I am going to call it a night and go back to cutting fabric. And as I'm leaving around 7:30 in the morning for my trip. Thank you, Tricia. I will see you all here soon. And thank you so much. I appreciate y'all very much. Okay. Bye, everybody.